This is the haunting story of William T. Stead, a renowned journalist and a pioneer in investigative reporting. Decades before his tragic demise aboard the Titanic, Stead wrote chilling accounts of drowning at sea. His writings, eerily similar to the disaster that would eventually claim his life, have led many to wonder, was it a mere coincidence? Or did Stead possess an extraordinary premonition about his fate? Stead was no ordinary man. Known for his groundbreaking work in journalism, he believed in using his platform to expose injustices and advocate for social reform. However, beyond his investigative work, Stead had a deep fascination with the mysterious and unseen, including dreams, spiritualism, and the concept of fate. His stories, such as how the mail steamer went down in mid-Atlantic, written in 1886, describe maritime tragedies with uncanny details, insufficient lifeboats, chaos during evacuations, and the loss of countless lives. Fast forward to April 1912, Stead boarded the Titanic to attend a peace conference in New York. Little did he know that his writings would mirror the grim reality he was about to face. On that fateful night, when the Titanic struck an iceberg and began to sink, Stead's fictional warnings turned into horrifying truth. He was among the 1,500 souls who perished in the icy waters of the North Atlantic. Was Stead's fate simply an extraordinary coincidence, or was it a glimpse into the future? Today, we'll delve into the life of this remarkable man, his prophetic writings, and the mystery of his final journey aboard. William Thomas Stead was born in 1849 in Northumberland, England. Over the course of his life, he would become one of the most influential journalists of his era, known for transforming the field of investigative journalism. Stead wasn't content with simply reporting the why news. He believed that journalism had the power to enact meaningful social reform. From a young age, Stead displayed a sharp intellect and a keen interest in writing. After starting his career as a local newspaper editor, he rose to prominence when he became the editor of the Pall Mall Gazette in London, one of the most widely read publications of the time. Under his leadership, the paper became a platform for exposing societal injustices, sparking debates and pushing for change. Stead's groundbreaking approach to journalism was revolutionary. Instead of merely reporting on events, he sought to uncover hidden truths and bring them to the public's attention. His most famous piece, The Maiden Tribute of Modern Babylon, was a bold exposé on child exploitation and human trafficking in Victorian England. This series not only shocked the nation but also led to significant legal reforms, including the raising of the age of consent. Beyond this, Stead championed causes such as prison reform, the abolition of slavery, and peace advocacy. His work wasn't without controversy. His fearless reporting often drew criticism from powerful figures and institutions. However, Stead remained undeterred, believing that journalism had a moral responsibility to hold society accountable. Stead's influence extended far beyond his articles. He was a pioneer in using storytelling, first-hand accounts, and undercover reporting to engage readers and inspire action. His dedication to using the press as a force for good left an indelible mark on the field of journalism, inspiring future generations to pursue truth and justice through their writing. William T. Stead wasn't just a journalist. He was a visionary. His belief in the power of the written word and his unwavering commitment to social change solidified his place as one of history's most remarkable journalists. As we delve deeper into his story, we'll see how his groundbreaking work and enigmatic writings continue to captivate us to this day. Beyond his groundbreaking work in journalism, William T. Stead harbored a deep fascination with the spiritual and the unseen. His belief in the power of intuition, dreams, and premonitions set him apart, as a man deeply connected to the mysteries of life and death. This passion for exploring the unknown influenced much of his writing, blurring the lines between reality and the mystical. Stead was not just a journalist, but a seeker of truth in all its forms. He believed that the human mind had untapped abilities, particularly in understanding the future and the afterlife. This belief drew him to spiritualism, a movement that was gaining popularity in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Stead attended seances, studied psychic phenomena, and wrote extensively about his experiences, often sharing his thoughts on the possibilities of life beyond death. One of Stead's most controversial beliefs was that dreams and premonitions could provide glimpses into future events. He argued that the subconscious mind was capable of perceiving truths that the conscious mind could not fully comprehend. Stead often recounted vivid dreams that he believed held significant meaning, and he encouraged others to pay attention to their intuitions and inner visions. These ideas found their way into his writings, where he frequently explored themes of death and the afterlife. For Stead, death was not an end but a transition, a doorway to another realm of existence. He used his work to challenge societal views on mortality and to spark conversations about what lies beyond. One of Stead's most intriguing pieces was Letters from Julia, a collection of writings he claimed were messages from the spirit of a deceased friend. In these letters, Stead documented supposed communications with the afterlife, offering readers a glimpse into his deeply held spiritual beliefs. Though met with skepticism, the book resonated with those who shared his curiosity about the unknown. This fascination with death and spirituality often infused Stead's journalistic work with a sense of urgency and depth. He was not content to simply observe the world. He wanted to understand the forces that shaped it, both seen and unseen. His ability to weave the mystical into his storytelling added a layer of complexity that continues to intrigue readers today. William T. Stead's dual legacy as a journalist and spiritual seeker reflects his relentless curiosity about the human condition. Whether investigating societal injustices or delving into the mysteries of the afterlife, Stead pushed boundaries and challenged conventional thinking, leaving behind a body of work that is as thought-provoking. In 1886, William T. Stead published a fictional story titled How the Mail Steamer Went Down in Mid-Atlantic by a Survivor. What seemed like a gripping piece of storytelling, at the time now reads as an eerie premonition of maritime disasters to come, including the tragic sinking of the Titanic, in which Stead himself would lose his life decades later. The story tells the harrowing tale of a passenger ship that sinks in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean after colliding with another vessel. The vivid and dramatic account is told from the perspective of a survivor who witnesses the chaos and despair unfold as passengers struggle for their lives. One of the central themes of the story is the tragic lack of lifeboats on board, which ultimately leads to a massive loss of life. Stead's portrayal of the disaster was strikingly realistic. He detailed the panic among passengers, the heroic and selfless acts of some, and the grim acceptance of fate by others. The story captured the human drama of such a catastrophe with remarkable emotional depth. Readers could almost feel the icy waters of the Atlantic, the desperation of those stranded without lifeboats, and the heartache of lives cut short. Yet how the mail steamer went down in mid-Atlantic was more than just a work of fiction. It was a stark warning. Stead used the story as a platform to highlight the lack of safety measures on passenger ships during his time. He was particularly critical of the insufficient number of lifeboats, pointing out that most ships were ill-prepared to handle large-scale emergencies. Stead's story was written at a time when the shipping industry was rapidly expanding, driven by advances in technology and the growing demand for transatlantic travel. Ships were being built larger and faster, often prioritizing luxury and speed over safety. Stead foresaw the dangers of this trend and used his writing to advocate for stricter regulations. In April 1912, William T. Stead boarded the RMS Titanic for its maiden voyage, embarking on what was meant to be a significant journey for both him and the world. Stead was traveling to New York to attend a peace conference organized by U.S. President William Howard Taft and philanthropist Andrew Carnegie. This conference was intended to promote international arbitration and foster global understanding, an ideal that Stead had championed throughout his life. Stead was no stranger to travel or public speaking. As a journalist, reformer, and visionary, he had dedicated his career to addressing societal issues and advocating for meaningful change. His attendance at the Peace Conference was yet another example of his commitment to creating a better world. However, Stead could never have anticipated that this voyage would also bring the events he had written about decades earlier eerily to life. The Titanic, billed as the unsinkable ship, was a marvel of its time. It was the largest and most luxurious vessel ever built, designed to carry over 2,200 passengers and crew. The ship represented the pinnacle of human achievement, combining state-of-the-art engineering with opulent comfort. For Stead, traveling aboard the Titanic symbolized both progress and hope, a fitting backdrop for his journey to advocate for peace. Stead's time aboard the Titanic was documented by several fellow passengers who recalled his presence vividly. He was described as warm, thoughtful, and approachable, often engaging in deep conversations about global affairs and the role of journalism in shaping the future. Despite the grandeur of the ship, Stead remained focused on his mission, emphasizing the need for unity and cooperation in an increasingly divided world. However, beneath the surface of this optimistic journey lay an unsettling irony. Decades earlier, Stead had written stories that bore an uncanny resemblance to what would unfold aboard the Titanic. His 1886 fictional account, How the Mail Steamer Went Down in Mid-Atlantic by a Survivor, described a ship sinking in the Atlantic due to insufficient lifeboats. In 1892, he published another story, From the Old World to the New, which included a ship rescuing passengers from a sinking vessel. These stories, once dismissed as mere fiction, now seemed like eerie premonitions of the fate awaiting the Titanic and its passengers. On the evening of April 14, 1912, the Titanic struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic. The collision occurred at 11:40 p.m., and within hours, the ship would sink beneath the icy waters, claiming the lives of over 500 people. As panic spread among the passengers and crew, accounts suggest that Stead remained remarkably composed. Survivors later recounted how Stead assisted others in finding lifeboats, prioritizing women and children. He was seen encouraging calmness amid the chaos, embodying the principles of selflessness and courage he had often written about. The parallels between Stead's writings and the Titanic disaster are impossible to ignore. In his stories, he had warned about the dangers of overconfidence in maritime engineering and the negligence of safety measures, particularly the lack of lifeboats. Despite these warnings, the Titanic set sail with lifeboats sufficient for only half its passengers, a decision that would prove catastrophic. For Stead, who had spent his life advocating for change and exposing societal flaws, the tragedy was a cruel irony. His fiction had become reality, and he found himself living through the very scenario he had foreseen. While Stead's death aboard the Titanic marked the end of his earthly journey, it also cemented his legacy as a man who sought to use his voice to make a difference. One survivor recalled seeing Stead sitting quietly in a chair, reading a book as the ship's fate became increasingly clear. This image of a man at peace with his destiny is both haunting and poignant, reflecting Stead's lifelong belief in the continuity of the human spirit beyond death. William T. Stead's final voyage aboard. The Titanic is a story of profound tragedy, extraordinary foresight, and enduring legacy. His writings serve as a testament to the power of storytelling and its ability to influence change. Yet they also remind us of the cost of ignoring warnings, whether they come from fiction or fact. As we reflect on Stead's life and death, we are left with a question. Was his fate a tragic coincidence? Or was it guided by an unseen force of premonition? Regardless of the answer, his story continues to resonate as a powerful reminder of humanity's fragility and the importance of heeding the lessons of the past. William T. Stead stepped aboard the Titanic with a heart full of hope and a mind dedicated to peace, unaware that his journey would end in one of history's greatest maritime disasters. Even in his final moments, he exemplified courage, selflessness, and an unwavering commitment to his principles, qualities that ensure his. The story of William T. Stead is one of intrigue, mystery, and tragedy. As a journalist, his writings about maritime disasters, particularly how the mail steamer went down in mid-Atlantic, bear an eerie resemblance to the sinking of the Titanic, a disaster he would personally experience decades later. But how should we interpret these chilling parallels? Were his writings mere coincidences, or did they reflect a profound intuition about his own destiny? At first glance, it might seem like a case of coincidence. Stead lived during a time when transatlantic travel was growing rapidly, and with it came increasing concerns about maritime safety. It wasn't uncommon for writers and journalists to explore scenarios of disaster, as they reflected real-world anxieties of the era. Stead, as an insightful and observant writer, may have simply envisioned a plausible scenario based on the risks of the time: insufficient lifeboats, human error, and overconfidence in technological advancements. However, what sets Stead apart is the striking accuracy of his predictions. His fictional accounts not only described a ship sinking in the Atlantic, but also emphasized the exact factors that would contribute to the Titanic's tragedy: the lack of lifeboats and the arrogance of believing in an unsinkable vessel. These details make it difficult to dismiss his writings as pure coincidence. Some argue that Stead's work reflects a deep intuition about his own fate. Stead was a man fascinated by spirituality, dreams, and the mysteries of life and death. He believed in the power of premonitions and often wrote about themes that blurred the lines between fiction and foresight. Perhaps his writings were more than just stories. They could have been subconscious expressions of his awareness of his eventual destiny. It's worth noting that Stead himself believed in the interconnectedness of events and the ability of the human mind to perceive truths beyond immediate understanding. His spiritual leanings may have heightened his sensitivity to the unseen, allowing him to write with a clarity that seems, regardless of whether his writings were coincidence or foresight. William T. Stead's story leaves us with important lessons. His work serves as a powerful reminder of the fragility of human life and the consequences of ignoring warnings. His calls for improved safety measures in maritime travel were tragically ignored. During his time, a decision that cost over 1,500 lives aboard the Titanic. Stead's legacy as both a journalist and a visionary remains influential. His ability to blend storytelling with advocacy continues to inspire, Writers and reformers. Whether his stories were shaped by intuition or simply keen observation, they carry a timeless message: the importance of preparedness, humility, and listening to voices that warn of danger. So, how should we interpret the story of William T. Stead? Perhaps it's a reminder that life often intertwines coincidence, intuition, and destiny in ways we cannot fully understand. His writings challenge us to look beyond the surface and consider the deeper forces at play in our lives. Was Stead a man with an extraordinary gift for foresight, or was he simply a brilliant observer of the world around him? The answer remains a mystery, but one thing is certain: his story continues to captivate and inspire us. Even over the story of William T. Stead is one that weaves together brilliance, courage, and an undeniable sense of mystery. As a trailblazing journalist, Stead was renowned for his fearless pursuit of truth and his groundbreaking work in investigative reporting. Yet it is his prophetic writings about maritime disasters and his own untimely death aboard the Titanic that continue to haunt and inspire people even today. Stead was no ordinary journalist. He was a visionary who believed in the power of storytelling to bring about societal change. Through his work, he tackled issues such as child exploitation, prison reform, and peace advocacy, often risking his reputation to expose uncomfortable truths. But what sets Stead apart is his extraordinary ability to foresee dangers that others ignored. In his 1886 story, How the Mail Steamer Went Down in Mid-Atlantic by a Survivor, he wrote of a passenger ship sinking in the Atlantic due to a lack of lifeboats, a chillingly accurate precursor to the Titanic tragedy that would claim his life decades later. One interpretation of Stead's prophetic writings is that they were simply coincidental. As a skilled observer and social critic, Stead was deeply aware of the risks posed by rapid technological advancement and human overconfidence. During his time, transatlantic travel was growing rapidly, and safety regulations often lagged behind innovation. His fictional accounts may have been a reflection of these concerns rather than a true glimpse into the future. However, the specificity of his writings makes it difficult to dismiss them as mere coincidence. The parallels between his 1886 story and the Titanic disaster, both involving a ship sinking in the Atlantic, a shortage of lifeboats, and preventable loss of life, are striking. These details suggest that Stead's warnings were not just grounded in reality, but perhaps touched by an extraordinary intuition. This story, along with his other writings, raises profound questions. Was Stead's foresight a product of coincidence? Intuition? Stead was deeply fascinated by the unseen and the mystical. He believed in the power of dreams, premonitions, and the subconscious mind. These interests often found their way into his work, blending fact with elements of foresight and spirituality. It is possible that Stead's writings were influenced by his own subconscious awareness of his destiny. In his lifetime, Stead attended seances, explored spiritualism, and wrote extensively about death and the afterlife. His fascination with these themes may have heightened his sensitivity to unseen forces, allowing him to sense dangers and possibilities beyond the grasp of ordinary perception. Whether consciously or not, his writings seem to reflect an uncanny awareness of the tragic fate that awaited him. Stead's death aboard the Titanic in April 1912 cemented his place in history as both a visionary and a tragic figure. Reports from survivors describe Stead as calm and selfless during the chaos, helping others find lifeboats while accepting his own fate. This bravery in the face of disaster reflects the courage and compassion that defined his life and work. His prophetic writings and untimely death continue to resonate because they highlight the fragility of human life and the cost of ignoring warnings. Stead's calls for better safety measures on passenger ships were tragically unheeded during his time, leading to one of history's most infamous maritime disasters. Yet his story is not just a tale of tragedy. It is a testament to the power of storytelling and the enduring impact of one man's dedication to truth and justice. Stead's work reminds us of the importance of foresight, the value of courage, and the need to listen to warnings. Whether they come from intuition or observation, the story of William T. Stead leaves us with more questions than answers. Was his life guided by coincidence, intuition, or a true vision of the future? The answer remains elusive, much like the man himself. What is certain, however, is that Stead's legacy endures. His prophetic writings and heroic actions aboard the Titanic continue to inspire and intrigue us, reminding us of the complexities of fate and the mysteries of the human mind. The story of William T. Stead is not just about a man who saw tragedy coming. It is about the courage to face it, the brilliance to warn others, and the mystery that... Do you believe that William T. Stead truly predicted his own fate? Or was it all just a strange coincidence? His story raises questions about the power of intuition, the mysteries of the subconscious, and the uncanny connections between fiction and reality. Whether Stead possessed a prophetic gift or simply had a remarkable ability to foresee possibilities, his life and death continue to fascinate and inspire. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Was Stead's writing a glimpse into the future, or are we finding patterns in hindsight? Share your opinions in the comments below and join the discussion about one of history's most intriguing figures. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share to explore more fascinating tales from history. Together, let's uncover the mysteries of the past and the lessons they hold for us today. See you in the next story!